I'd like to thank you all for coming on behalf of the Stop the War Coalition. This is very much the start of a campaign to take the issue of this criminal war in Afghanistan to the heart of the next general election, to take it out into all the communities where soldiers have been recruited to fight and die and be maimed in this rotten war, to put all forms of pressure on our government to get the troops out of Afghanistan now. So join us in the weeks and months ahead to really keep this issue at the top of the agenda and make Gordon Brown feel the heat of our anger. Now, in just a few minutes we're going to have some music to finish off this rally from the band King Blues. I'm sure we'll give them a very warm welcome, but just before we do, we're going to hear some words from a great musician, a great supporter of our movement. Please welcome Lowkey.
Thank you very much. I'd like to make something clear. Opposing this war does not by any stretch of propaganda make you pro what they call Al-Qaeda. No. That was Robert Gates, Brzezinski, Ronald Reagan's administration, and with all due respect for his current position regarding Palestine, Jimmy Carter's administration. Opposing this war does not make you pro-Taliban. No, that was Condoleezza Rice and the oil company Unocal that sat at the negotiating table with the Taliban. They weren't so concerned about women's rights at that point, were they? Besides, prior to invasion in 2001, it was the Taliban that offered up Osama bin Laden. But the occupation and the invasion still went ahead because there was a plan. The plan was imperialism. The plan was to loot the natural resources of a land whose history is littered with foreign interference. No to imperialism, no to interference, and no to intervention. Listen. Ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Joe Glenton, because at the end of the day, it is the soldiers who are on the front line of breaking the back of imperialism. It is the soldiers who will break the back of imperialism, and that's the bottom line. The heroin production coming out of that country increased 1,000% in the first year of occupation, and now today accounts for 92% of all of the heroin in the world. This is not by accident. This is not a mistake. If they really had an interest in giving the Afghan people real profit, a real way to help their economy, that opium that comes from their poppy fields would be used for medicinal purposes. Why does this not happen? Why is it in the arms of every drug addict on our streets? Another point I would like to make is this regime that they propped up in Afghanistan. Hamid Karzai, his brother, is heavily implicated in the heroin trade in that country. What people need to understand is that the American and British troops are not a necessary evil to defend from the Taliban. On the contrary, you can't get protection from the people who empowered your enemy. The man who empowers your enemy cannot defend you from that enemy. No to occupation and no to imperialism. They talk about this war as if it is for the good of humanity. Well, no, people die in wars. People are displaced in wars. People get raped in wars. People kill in wars. And people are haunted by their experiences of wars. But some people do strive in wars. Some people do profit from wars. Arms companies like BAE Systems and Lockheed make billions from war. The oil companies have made billions from these wars. These are people that profit off of death, primarily. What we must always remember is that we, as the British people, have absolutely nothing to gain from occupying, invading countries all over the world. We have nothing to gain from this. The British have failed at occupying Afghanistan many times before. The fact is this: our country obviously doesn't care for its soldiers. All they want their soldiers to do is kill and die. Gordon Brown is sending more young men to kill and die. That's the bottom line. Now, what I want to make clear to any soldiers who may be watching this is that your country does not care for you. That has been made evident. You are not fighting for your country. The Queen will not lose 1 minute of sleep over your death. Her grandson, Prince Harry, he joined the army just long enough to refer to one of his fellow troops as a Paki and refer to the people they're supposedly liberating as ragheads. Well, that's actually indicative of the whole process of justification which must take place. All they want their soldiers to do is take a gun and kill some ragheads. Well, no! That this war does not help the British people. It only endangers them and harms them. This war does not help the Afghan people. It only endangers them and harms them. And it does not help the soldiers. It only endangers them and harms them, obviously. So how does this war serve the interests of this country? An interesting way of working out whose interests the Prime Ministers were serving is by looking at who they take jobs for after their term is finished. For John Major, it was the Carlisle Group, a group with very close links to the Bush family. For Tony Blair, it was JP Morgan, a company who made billions off the war in Iraq. Who is Gordon Brown working for? That's what I want to know.